thank you for being here for our debate forum this afternoon. I will say first off, if you have questions that have come up for you after you arrived, we have 3x5 cards in the back that we can bring to you with little pencils. If you filled it out, I will get them to the moderator, so your question will be included in the discussion. Please go ahead and put your cell phones on vibrate or silent or whatever it is you do so they don't make cute sounds during the session.
A ring means $5 to the League of Women Voters.
Oh, that. Or
And
that.
that includes loud buzzes.
Restrooms are just outside the door directly across the hall if you need that. Carol Fogelsong and her team, the League of Women Voters, will be moderating for us this afternoon. So I'm going to introduce your panel, and then I'm going to step away and turn it over to Carol. So running for seat 1, seat 2, Mr. Cicio and Mr. Priestman, and running for seat 1, Mr. Blydenberg and Mr. Sullivan. Carol, it's all yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon. As Dr. Ruth said, my name is Carol Fogelsong, and I'm here representing the League of Women Voters of Orange County. I'll be the moderator for this debate, this candidate forum. The League of Women Voters is a trusted organization that does the hands-on work to safeguard democracy. While we never endorse a candidate, we do take positions on issues that affect our local communities. And in learning about, if you are more interested in learning more about the League, we have a website. You can join very quickly for about $60. It's lwvoc.org. So I'm going to repeat the cell phone admonition. So you all know, if I hear it ring, or my assistants hear it ring, you owe me $5 for the League of Women Voters. We'll figure out how to do the books later. I would like to introduce to you Caroline Emmons-Schramm, who is our question screener. Please write legibly. If she can't read it, I can't ask it. So short, clear, and concise. And we also have Jan Little, who is our infamous timer. And we'll explain what she's going to do in just a minute. This is the candidate forum for the Winter Park City Council Districts 1 and 2, and we will be following the League of Women Voters debate format. Each candidate will have a 2-minute opening and a 2-minute closing statement. They will have 2 minutes to respond to my first 3 questions, and then 1 minute to answer each question from the audience. All candidates will answer all questions. We will rotate the order in which they answer them, which is why we have this little cheat sheet over here to keep everybody straight, I hope. Please hold your applause until the end. If we applaud every answer, every time we lose time to ask questions. We'll give them all a rousing round of applause at the end. Our timekeeper will raise cards at 1 minute, 30 seconds, and stop. We don't have the hook, but I do have a cane. Actually, we have 2 of them for each people. Please, if questions occur to you as they're talking, feel free to get an index card and fill it out. Our experience in Winter Park has wonderfully been that there are more questions than we can possibly get through in one of these candidate forums, and I applaud you for that.
But you're falling down on the job today. I only got 4.
So, the candidates have drawn cards literally from a deck of cards to determine who is speaking first and the order in which they're going to go. And at this point, I'm going to ask Sheila to introduce herself, and she has 2 minutes.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me?
No.
Stand up. Is the mic on?
Yes. Put it closer. Keep it close.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Sheila DeCiccio, and I'm running for Winter Park City Commission Seat 2. I have lived in Winter Park for 37 years. Prior to coming to Winter Park, I was an attorney in Massachusetts, and I worked as an assistant district attorney for Plymouth County. When I moved to Florida, I married my husband Dan, and I began practicing at the law firm of Lown, Strawsick, Doster-Canner, and Reed. I was a litigator there, and I tried cases all over, representing various businesses, developers, corporations, etc. I became their first woman partner, and after a few years, I had my 2 children, Emily and Daniel. I needed more flexibility in my schedule. I go with the saying by Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, who said you can have it all, just not all at once. So I left the firm and I joined my husband's law firm. We built a business, our law firm on Morse Boulevard, where we operated for over 20 years. We just recently sold that business. Once my daughter got older and went to college, I then had more time. I joined the Orlando Museum of Art, became a member of Council of 101, of which I'm still a member. Also, I was on planning and zoning for 6 years. I just came off in last May. I was on co-compliance for 5 years, where I was chairperson. Also, I'm currently on the Economic Advisory Board and was very honored to have been on the Orange Overlay Committee. The reason I'm running for this office is because I see that there's so many major issues facing Winter Park right now. One of which, of course, and everybody complains of, traffic. It's been swept under the rug for so long, but there are things we can do, like left turn lanes, timing lights. We've got to protect our resources, our trees, our lakes, the parks. Right now, there's a huge staffing problem. So we want to work on that. And development. I'm for development, but it's got to be smart. We've got to protect our infrastructure. We've got to retain the scale and charm. And finally, transparency. I want everyone in this room to feel they have a voice. I know I always wanted a voice in City Hall, and I will do everything to make sure that you do too. Thank you.
Next.
Thank you, Dr. Edwards and the Winter Park Library for hosting us today. I'm happy to be in a very familiar room where I've spent hours volunteer teaching for the library. Serving others has been at the core of my life and reflects an aspect of my view of leadership, servant leadership. This is one reason why today I volunteer here at the library at Mead Garden at Westminster Towers, and really just where I can squeeze it in. Service and leadership have been the key hallmarks of my life, a varied resume of 30 years of work, almost exclusively in nonprofit, giving time, energy, and leadership for the betterment of others. Since 1989, I've been a communicator, traveling nationally, speaking mostly to colleges, national student organizations, and churches. My wife and I moved here 26 years ago to serve as the head age group coach of Trinity Aquatic Team. I've served our local community as the youth student pastor at First Baptist Church, Winter Park. Valencia College hired me as the history professor in 2002, and I served to be the chair of the history discipline on East Campus since 2009. I've been awarded for my teaching and elected to leadership posts throughout my career, including coaching, ministry, and the college. But you know, each of us here, and many of you out there, will have a long list, a resume of things that you've done, memberships and activities. That long list ultimately does not matter. What matters is what kind of a leader. What do you do with the leadership opportunities provided? Mother Teresa said, let us not be satisfied with just giving money. Money's not enough. People need your hearts to love them. Leadership is not simply accomplishing things when you're working alongside people who agree with you. Leadership, good leadership, is when you accomplish tasks working with others who don't always agree with you. It's not you versus me, my faction versus your faction, but it's rather us against the issue. And I've modeled this in every leadership role that I've ever held. I get things accomplished. In my current role as the chair of the Parks and Recreation Citizen Advisory Board, we've accomplished so much. We've done so well in that leadership role. My peers have re-elected me to that position 5 times. We instituted mechanisms and aspects to get good quality work done. We've done things like Showalter Field renovation, Winter Park 9, tennis center, listening to citizens ask for a better track so we can have a track membership, heating K-2A pools so we can have people swimming year-round. The list is on and on. In my life, I believe we accomplish things by working together because people matter. And the best way to demonstrate that is to accomplish work that benefits everyone.
And next we have Jeffrey Weinberg.
Is this mic working okay? Great. Well, thank you, Winter Park Library, and thank you, League of Women Voters, for putting on this forum. It's really important in terms of the community knowing who we are. So my name is Jeffrey Blydenberg. I'm running for City Commission Seat 1 to guard the legacy and to guide the future of Winter Park. Throughout my life as an architect and placemaker as an active civic volunteer, I have worked to bring people together to solve problems. Protecting, preserving, and improving Winter Park requires knowledge, expertise, and an ability to build consensus. To the heightened discussions of our times, I bring an understanding of Winter Park honed on a multiple level of civic involvement. These include providing leadership in our church's food program, in our city's recent visioning process, working to revitalize our Mead Botanical Garden as the chair, and also working with the Jobs Partnership to bring jobs to people that are needing to advance into careers. I bring valuable career experience in Winter Park's growing critical issues. Finally, as a resident of Winter Park for 23 years, I will bring to service my love of Winter Park and also the community to flourish. In Winter Park, design matters. I'm an architect. I'm a graduate of Rhode Island School of Design and Washington University in St. Louis. My career has been all about creative design, placemaking, planning, all done through collaboration with clients and communities. I'm uniquely qualified to help our commission be less contentious and more collaborative to address the challenges of growth that Winter Park is facing.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan, Marty Sullivan.
Thank you, Carol, and thank you to the League of Women Voters of Orange County. And thank you, Dr. Edwards, for putting this together. I am a fifth-generation Floridian. My wife and I moved here 38 years ago. I'm a licensed professional engineer, and Maura and I are now retired. We raised our daughter here, and she graduated from Winter Park High School. My education includes a bachelor's degree in physics from the University of South Florida and master's degrees in economics and engineering, respectively, from Florida State and University of Central Florida. As an environmental and geotechnical engineer, I've executed projects all across the state of Florida. I've served on many of Winter Park boards, and one of them was 20 years ago I chaired the Utility Advisory Board, where working with at that time Assistant City Manager Randy Knight, we spearheaded the effort to purchase the electric infrastructure. And that has been, some have called that the best thing the city has ever done, because not only are we able to underground our electric power, but also we have realized greatly improved electric service. My civic service, coupled with my knowledge and experience, uniquely qualifies me to be your next commissioner. I ask that you consider not only my qualifications, but also my positions and how I will serve you as your next commissioner. Thank you.
I'm going to start with Mr. Pressman for my first question to all four of you, and we'll just roll down the table if that's okay. Name a strength, a weakness, an opportunity, and a threat to Winter Park. A strength, a weakness, an opportunity, and a threat to Winter Park.
So 2 minutes.
2 minutes. just to be clear.
Thank you so much. All right, I've got it right. Our strengths are legion, I think, but I'll go with people. Our people are amazing. The reason my wife and I chose to stay and live here, just wonderful people. And through this time, I've met so many people. I mean, I've met with, I'm not in any group, I'm not in a faction. I'm not part of a sector of the society. I just want to do what's best for the city. So I've met people from all walks of life, all socioeconomic divisions, and just everybody is wonderful. I think our weakness could be a strength, but our weakness is that we're in the center of the fastest growing region in the country. We're not Winter Garden. We're not on the edge. They have their own issues with traffic and growth, but they're on the edge. We're in the center. The bulk of what we concern ourselves with traffic is really not Winter Park residents. So there's a challenge for us thinking how do we approach that? I think our opportunity is that we're a very wealthy city. We're a very well-off city. That means we have resources that we can bring to bear for a lot of things. as was said earlier, we've chosen to basically control our own electric system. I think we could control our own mini mass transit system. I think we could control our own broadband network system. These are things that would be very beneficial for residents, for the CRA, for people who struggle financially, as well as for our businesses, open a door for our businesses. And I think our threat is the reason I got involved. The threat is the tone. Over the past 10 years, particularly in our political discourse, our tone with each other has mimicked what I see in the national system, which concerns me, makes me nervous. Because when you go down that road of tone, when you go into othering those people over there, as opposed to thinking like Mr. Rogers would urge us to think as neighbors, you kind of end up, at least historically, in a place that's not safe, it's dangerous. It actually leads us to a worse conclusion. And then when we act out of fear, we do not act ourselves, our best selves. And so that threat to us is not external, but internal.
Thank you. I would agree with Carl, and our greatest strength is the people of this community. It's a sense of neighborhoods, sense of community. That's what drew me to that's what drew me to Winter Park and my family. It's fantastic. I think also it's because this community has just always treasured its resources, its parks, its trees, its scale, its charm, what I call the heart and soul. That's what makes this such a great community, why we want to live, work, play here, and other people want to come and be a part of this community. With respect to our opportunity, we have the opportunity right now to buy green space with the post office. That is something we should just jump at the chance. We also have the opportunity to make Progress Point into a real jewel for this community. We can make it a mini theater district. I think an acre and a half has been set aside for park to make it part and go into Mead Gardens. We have these opportunities, and this will be something like the Farmers Market or Central Park for the residents. We need to jump on these chances right now. As far as a weakness, our weakness right now is our traffic, our infrastructure. And the traffic, we can do things about it, but we need to act regionally too, because we are being bombarded from all sides. And there are things we can do by working with all of our counterparts, but here, as I think I mentioned earlier, turn lanes, we can get those done immediately. We can get the lights timed. And so there are things we can do, and we can look at connecting Sunrail to the airport. And as far as threat goes, the threat is not addressing these problems, to keep sweeping them under the rug. And that's not helping. We did this with our police department. We lost 12 officers in 1 year because we didn't address the pay issue. That doesn't help the city. So we need to be very much aware of what's going on and address the problems so they don't become a threat to the city. Thank you.
Okay, strength. The city's fiscal situation, I believe, is one of our strengths in that we've built our reserves and without increasing our tax rates. And our city manager, actually, I believe, has done an excellent job monitoring our fiscal situation. The information that comes out from the city regarding our costs and our revenues is pretty good. It could be better, but it's pretty good. A weakness our city has had is that there have been many development projects brought forth that have caused a rift between the citizens. And basically we ended up with citizens fighting the development interests. And case by case, sometimes the citizens won, sometimes the developers won. It doesn't have to be this way. We can negotiate, we the city can negotiate with the developers so that we get a balance between what enhances our quality of life and what gives a developer a reasonable rate of return. Opportunity and threat. One issue. Orange Avenue overlay. There are some beautiful things in that overlay. Increased green space, bicycle and pedestrian ways. However, the threat is that the entitlement giveaway instead of being where it has been for big property owners, has been raised to a level that gives more return than they should get. And the developments are the same, potentially the same residential density as the Paseo. Thank you.
So the strength of our community is its people. I agree with Carl. One of the greatest things about running for office is you get to meet some really interesting folks. The meet and greets, and especially walking neighborhoods, knocking on the door and meeting folks you haven't met before, and then learning what's important to them. And I've had a whole range of things, from people with noise pollution and this and that and all kinds of issues, to folks that said, this is the greatest community. And I said, so what would you change? They said, not a thing. So we have 29,000 people out there, and that is our strength. It is just, that's how we grow, because we just have this remarkable community. The weakness is we have a vision that's been approved, that was done in 2016, but we don't have a plan. We don't have a master plan. We've been starting on it. Orange Avenue overlay is the beginning of a plan, but we don't have a master plan in this community. We don't have a plan for 1792. We don't currently have an up-to-date master plan for Central Park. That would be a really important thing to do, and it's a weakness we have to work on. The opportunity is that we're close to being the best community in Florida. We can be even better with technology. How many of you have a problem with Spectrum? I've heard that everywhere. We need to fix that. We need to fix our, the transit pieces, as Carl was talking about. And we need to be supportive of our young families. That's the real opportunity. And then the threat is the contentiousness. The contentiousness needs to come to an end. We live, as you all know, we live in Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. We went to school right across the street. We are all neighbors in Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, and we need to start behaving that way. We can have different ideas, but we can all come together, and if we don't do that, that's the threat, the contentiousness going on. Thank you.
Thank you. For my next question, again, you have 2 minutes, and this time Ms. DeCiccio will get to start, and then we'll roll down and end with you. Cite an example of a change that you would propose to improve Winter Park. What gets measured, what gets done? How would your proposed change be measured and evaluated?
There are a couple of things that I would do. The first is I would look to our Parks Department right now, and it has been combined with our Lakes Department and our urban, the Forestry Department. And right now, they are desperate for help. They have lost many key players. And I want to see this department, because this is part of what makes Winter Park so special. We've ignored maintenance. We had a 10-year plan it started in 2006, it expired in 2016. Right now, we don't have a plan. And the commissioners voted down enacting another 10-year plan. So we don't have a master plan. During that time, wonderful things happened, and Carl alluded to a lot of them. However, we don't have that future plan. And the elephant in the room is the maintenance. Who's going to take care of all of these things that are going on right now? So that is an issue that I think can be addressed, and we can bring back our parks and our lakes and bring it up to the standard that we in Winter Park. So we've come to expect, and we should have. Thank you.
I believe one thing we can change to improve our city is to address traffic in a different way. There is in the works a traffic model, a calibrated dynamic model that will allow us to look at what kind of changes we can make in terms of road layouts, one-way roads, roundabouts. I'm not proposing those. I am saying we can examine those if we have a traffic model and run the model and see what effect it has, not only on the subject intersection, but also the entire area in the vicinity of the road. Another change is to, next year, we start paying maintenance and operation for Sunrail. We'll have skin in the game with that commuter rail, and I believe we should work to increase the rate of the frequency of stops and turn it into a transit system rather than a commuter rail system. Every person on Sunrail is one less car on the road. I want to see us loading up the Sunrail cars. In terms of measuring it, Sunrail ridership would be one measure. Of course, the standard traffic counts. Traffic counts would be another measure. But those changes, I believe, would be an enhancement to our quality of life.
My change would be for the community to focus on our young families. And one of the things I've heard as I've been walking the community is that there are a lot of things that we're not doing for our young families. And the young families in this community, they're the future of our community. For example, technology that would allow two-way communication with our commission meetings, where right now you can hear what's going on, but you can't respond. You have to be in the chamber to respond. There should be a way for that to be two ways. Increased participation in government and civic issues is really important. One of the things that's really critical for that is technology. I mentioned Spectrum before. I can't tell you how many times people have said, you know, I'm in a meeting and Spectrum goes out. So people are, you know, young families working at home, working families, we need to grow for the future. We can't stay the same. We need to really, and one of our real future assets is our young families. I think that's, the other areas for them are improving our city athletic fields. That comes to the Parks Department, as Sheila was mentioning. That's another critical area of how we take care of our young families, because they are our future.
Well, like my peers, I have multiple things that I could think of that would be beneficial. Most of mine, I think, initially start with the CRA, which, as you know, has a significant amount of money for the next 5 years till it sunsets in 2027. And there's so many things I think we can and should do there, including focus on our children and education, trying to help funding either to Valencia or to the Winter Park Tech, potentially to Rollins. There's things we could do with microloans to help young minority-owned businesses, entrepreneurs beginning to step in who may not be able to put together $500, $2,500 to start a business. There's things we could do involving technology, which I've spoken about before, but the thing I'll focus on is what I said before. I just loop back to it because I think it is the most impacting thing connected to the idea of measured and valued. Winter Park has done well with our electric grid, as you've heard. So when we own our own things, basically, we do better. It's the idea that founders believe that government should be locally owned. And if we would invest initially through the CRA, but eventually through the entire budget, and our own mini mass transit, Lynx does an okay job broadly, but they cannot provide what we need in the local interior part. It'd be much better for us traffic-wise if we got many of the Lynx buses off our interior roads. If we had our own mini mass transit, whether a small trolley or like Lake Nona using autonomous driving vehicle, up and down Park, down Morris, around 1792, looping around Orange, in that circle, that eventually, from an evaluation point of view, measured point of view, we could see within 5 to 10 years, seeing that expanded, Lakemont, Loma, Palmer, looping around, this would help us over time. We cannot expect to fix that immediately. Part of my idea of a strategic vision is to think not what's best in 2020, but what do we do now for the year 2070? We cannot wait. And so in taking this stance, this helps us connect into technology, which is a critical part of what's happening with technology, with driving and traffic, but also environmental issues.
Thank you. The last of my 3 questions, and we'll start with Mr. Sullivan on this one. Are you happy with the level of transparency you see at City Hall in conducting meetings and sharing information with the public, honoring public records requests?
Not really. I often go on the city website looking for some detailed information on a project, or for instance, I was looking for something on the Hill Center. It's the new development where now it's, what's it called? Just north of Fairbanks on 1792 on the west side. And so I put it as a search item. There was a citywide notice sent out, and I couldn't find it on the website anywhere. So that's one item to increase transparency. Since I've started my campaign, I received an email from Randy Knight, city manager, that extremely detailed information that would be very valuable for anyone wanting to dig into what's going on in the city. Apparently that is only sent to commissioners. I think it should be available for everybody. So that's a couple of examples, but in general, we need to manage our communications and provide full information, timely information, that would help us all understand what's going on in the city and be active with full knowledge of where our leaders are planning to take us. Thank you.
So communication is at the core of how we operate. And so if we have good communication and we have good information and we have facts readily available, then we can make good decisions. When we don't have that, then it's harder to make the decisions. As it relates to the level of transparency, you can, as Marty's saying, you can get just about anything you want when you call up Randy and ask, and you'll get the information. But it shouldn't be that way. I totally agree with him in that regard, that we need to do a much better job on our website, which should be, because right now the city, the city is our sole source of information. We have Winter Park Voice, which gives us information, and we have the city, and then we have whatever we get on Facebook, and that's a whole other story. But the city's responsibility is to inform us. I don't think they've done as good a job as they could on informing, what the benefits of the Orange Avenue overlay. I mean, there's all kinds of disinformation out there. So they're doing projects and not keeping us informed. So on that level, I would agree that there is a lack of transparency. I think if we look through all of the different aspects of when you go, it takes a while to find something you're looking for on the web. And I think we could totally redesign that whole process so that it really focuses on being much more user-friendly so we can find the information that we need.
Well, the good communication is a two-way street. So this is the first part. Since 2007, 2008, I've been fighting this battle since the turn of the millennium. We've been in a communication crisis, which is, I believe, one of the major roots as to why this tone that I mentioned has occurred. Because we are now talking past each other. There has been a balkanization of communication. When I grew up, the phone hung on the wall and it would ring. And if nobody was there to answer, it rang lonely. And then you remember as a kid in the 70s getting to check the answer machine. You had 2 or 3 ways we communicated. Since 2007, 2008, with the explosion of Facebook and Twitter and social media and mass communication, you carry communication mobily. What has happened is we've ended up in a place where your style is unique to you. Do you use Twitter? Do you use text? Do you use Facebook? Do you use Facebook Messenger? Do I reach you on Instagram Messenger? One of the challenges for me in this campaign as I've talked to people is to say, well, how do you want me to communicate with you? But then that puts the onus on the person communicating to come up with 8, 9, 10, 15 different ways to communicate. When I think of the city and the city situation, are they doing a good enough job is a question of are they getting it out, but it's also a question of am I actually receiving the information? When it comes to me on Facebook or email, I've emailed so many people and called so many people and they don't always respond back. Are they intentionally ignoring me? I kind of doubt it. I think in that balkanization effect, they've actually not gotten my message. So I'm frustrated, but then they're frustrated at the same time. So when this situation comes, the only way to attack it is to try to divide as much work as you possibly can. When I was the president of the faculty for Valencia, one of the things I instituted, because we had the same problem, everybody being frustrated, was I went back to handwritten letters, I used email, we rebuilt the website, and I made personal visits. I made it my job to go to every campus, go on every floor, go past every office, and go to every division meeting that would allow me to come. And as your commissioner, I would try to do that, but that'd be very difficult for any one of us to pull that off citywide. So this is a challenge as we continue to move together.
Well, everyone's said everything pretty much here today, and I can't disagree with any of it. But communication is the key problem here in the city. And what I would do, there are ways that we can fix some of this. First of all, we need to improve our communication department with the city of Winter Park. Everything should come through there, all emails, the agenda, but a detailed agenda, the one that the commissioners get, so that we all have the same information so that we can discuss it intelligently. What I would do is, and my fellow opponents may not agree with it, but I would require at least one workshop every month, and I wouldn't hold it at City Hall. I'd hold one at the community center, one here at the library the next month. Give plenty of notice where it's going to be held so you can get the residents to come in. We can hear their issues. They can hear our discussions, what's going on, where each of us are coming from, and then have an opportunity for everybody in the audience to come up and speak, whether it's on the issues that were discussed that day or whatever happens to be bothering them. Because that's the only way we're going to know what's on your minds, and we can clear up any whether it's misconceptions or whatever, and if you've got problems in your neighborhood, then we can get them on an agenda and get them addressed for you. So I think that this has to come all through the city, one communication, putting much more information out. We shouldn't have to wait for weeks to get the minutes. That way we forget what's happened, who remembers what happened, needs to come out. Even if it's just an abbreviated minute at first, at least we'll all know what's going on. And I think that once we do this, a lot of the theories that are going on, who did what to who, will be all cleared up, and there won't be a need for, you won't have different commissioners pitted against other commissioners, because you'll hear what they all have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move to one of the first audience questions. Actually, there's 4 questions, and I'm going to try and weave into one, and you only get 1 minute. The rules change as we go. And we're going to start with Mr. Bonenberg first, okay, in rotation. And it seems appropriate, since we are sitting in the library. These 4 questions all have to do with the library, and I'm going to try and weave them for you. Knowing that the library is a 501c3 nonprofit with a long-standing partnership with the city, how do you plan to support the library's mission of community education moving forward? Which goes to the question of, will you support an increase in funding for the 2/3 of the library's operating costs? Which goes with, are you committed to ensuring the new library is built in a timely manner? Can't take care of it until it's built. And finally, if as a commissioner you are asked to vote to stop or delay the library project, would you vote yes or no? And you only get to say, according to this question, yes or no as your final answer. Okay, let's see if I can do this. The library is a 501c3. It has significant operating costs. Do you foresee increasing the funding of the operating costs for the new library from the city's budget? And do you, and then that's one piece. Second, if there is a vote to stop or delay the library project, would you vote yes or no? Is that woven enough?
And I get to start, right? Nice, thanks a lot.
Okay, I need to make sure that it's clear to them as well as to me.
Was one of the questions, are you committed to the new library?
To it being
Built in a timely manner.
So there's 3 questions?
So there's, yeah, timely build the new one, increase or support the library's operating costs, and if there's something before the commission to stop or delay the library, how would you vote?
City Commission has voted to approve the library and for it to move forward. Our job as commissioners will be sure that it's delivered for the budgets that's been established and in the schedule that's been established. If you look around this room, there are 7 posters on the wall that talk about why libraries are really important. Take time to read those when you're leaving. Absolutely would support necessary improvements or increases to the budget. The library it is at the heart of our community. It's one of the most important third spaces in the community, and we need to give it the support that it deserves. It's been worked on really hard in this community for the last, 6 or 7 years since it first started with the dream of a new library. We're right on the cusp of that new dream happening, and we need to support it. And I would not support turning it down.
Thank you. And that means that we roll up the car.
I love libraries. Like I said earlier, I volunteer here. As the summers with the kids, I would go to the library program in my town, little town in East Tennessee, and get the little stickers for reading. Sometimes I just hide in the library and just read. My parents loved it. I have my 2 master's degrees. I was in the library all the time. Thought I'd be an archivist, actually, before I became a professor. Libraries are critical importance. A recent Pew Research study in 2016 talked about that libraries are still vitally important for all communities, for young businesses, for students. That's why it's so important to put it where it is. I'm excited about it being on the west side of town. I would increase funding. I do think we should keep building it, and I would vote no if somebody tried to stop it.
I am also an advocate for the new library. It passed 3-2. We've spent a lot of money getting to that point. If we were to try to stop it, we would be out a lot of money that we could not recoup. My children both use this library more than I can tell you. They grew up, they were part of Winter Park, so I am in favor of the new library. However, if there becomes a number of problems with the library and that the cost overrun is 20, 30 million, then I would have to look at it. It's very difficult for me to say yes or no to that question. My answer right now would be no, I would not stop it, but I can't tell you if a lot of problems surface that I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't take a hard look at that. The cost overruns, and there's some other issues that are with the library, but for right now, I am absolutely committed to getting us the best possible world-class library. And yes, I am in support of increasing funding for this library because there is so many great things that they do, and there's so much expansion we can do as far as classes. You can have someone all over the world watching lectures, and I think that's fabulous. Thank you.
I'm going to paraphrase Winston Churchill. Winter Park can be depended upon to do the right thing once we've exhausted every other possibility. So the City Commission granted construction approval for the library a few weeks ago, following strongly divided opinions, extended budget discussions, and 4 years of back and forth. We are into this library and event center at this time for several $million. To do other than to continue construction would be expensive. We need the best indicators we can devise, such as in-depth surveys, to determine our citizens' wishes and to consider our options, that is go or no go. As your next commissioner, I will represent you, the citizens, on this issue, and from the results of this survey, do your bidding.
Sorry, I'll lose track of where y'all are. We're going to start with Mr. Cressman this time. Referencing the downtown core and water sewer, 1792 in particular, knowing that the underground infrastructure has already experienced structural failure with the present load, why is this not given paramount consideration when higher FARs, F-A-R, little less, are being tolerated and even put into place over existing comprehensive code? This is a question that was submitted to the library, their request for questions. I think the basic question is, 1792 is looking at overload and infrastructure failure.
Sure, thank you. Well, if you were here in 2004, you remember what happened when the hurricanes came through. On my section of the town, we had flowing running water for about 4 days. We didn't have water in our house for about 5 or 6 days because our aging infrastructure suffered the catastrophic situation of the hurricane. Since that time, the city has put hundreds of thousands of dollars consistently in the budget. We were talking about the budget a moment ago. One of the challenges for the commissioners and one of the challenges for whoever ends up in these 2 seats, working with our fellow commissioners, is running the budget. and making sure that we have enough money. Supporting the infrastructure is vital, and we would continue to do that. It can be my contention or my position to make sure we continue to put funding where we need to for infrastructure. It is important, obviously, to be paying attention for our infrastructure and that we take time to think about, well, what are the possibilities? As we're looking at development and growth, trying to protect ourselves from density, and at the same time being an open welcome mat for new businesses, we've got to be paying attention to that. I think the city is actually doing that, and I would applaud that work, and I would look to the city staff and their expertise to help us continue to do that very well.
I think the blowout that people are talking about wasn't Winter Park. It was actually Mills in Nebraska on 1792, which is Orlando, and that's because of all the pressure they're putting. So it wasn't Winter Park. We are fortunate. Our sewer and water lines are in very good shape. In fact, they're in such good shape that the city decided instead of, it wasn't necessary to upgrade them, that they could put that money towards undergrounding, and that's what they've been doing. Now, occasionally there's a break in a line. That's if someone's doing construction, there'll be a break, and then you have to fix it, and that's when you have to boil water. But right now, our infrastructure is in good shape. What we have to really focus on right now, and with new development, all of our infrastructure is being taxed when you get a lot more density. It's our roads, it's our sewers, it's our water lines, and so what we have to do is provide enough green space and work with developers to do that so you have a place for the runoff to go and you can treat that water. That's really what the issue for Winter Park is right now, and I pledge to make sure that when a developer comes, that we work on that problem so it doesn't affect anybody. Thank you.
I believe that the city has done a pretty good job of maintaining our infrastructure. And that's one of the core jobs of the commission, to ensure that we continue to do so. There are areas we can improve. Our lakes are not what they were 100 years ago. They could be if we were to continue increasing our stormwater treatment, ensure that we didn't get fertilizer runoff into the lakes, that we could actually make them better. Brick roads, I hear about that, and the newer brick roads, by newer I mean put late in the last 20 years, there seem to be some failures, like on Pennsylvania, Lakeshore Drive, and it needs to be fixed. It's going to be expensive, but that's going to be our job on the city commission to see that that happens. We need concurrency all the way around with our infrastructure and whatever developments come forward.
So currently, to reach concurrency, that is making sure that we have the capacity for developments, our community, the voters, it's on their backs. It's not on the backs of the developers. What we need to do is we need a development impact fee so that when new development comes in, which is, has gone through all the different processes for design, approval, etc. One of those things is the infrastructure impact. And whatever that impact is, needs to be part of the developer's responsibility. In the residential areas, currently the city takes care of all those pieces of infrastructure. The city also does the same thing in the commercial areas. To my way of thinking, we need to have the development community step up to do that. We can make much better use of impact fees as opposed to ever having to consider raising taxes, which is the third rail in Winter Park. Nobody wants to raise taxes, so this is a way to be able to address that. Thank you.
Okay. And this time we start with Sheila. Are you in favor of Mayor Deming's, Orange County Mayor Deming's 1-cent transportation tax proposal? If so, what will you do to advocate it? If not, why are you against it?
I'm in favor of the 1-cent tax. 50%